Alright, so welcome back. We're going to talk about, we've got three words we're going to talk about. Break, continue, I think we're going to talk about pass as well. Break, continue, and pass. Now let's talk about break first. And break stops whatever we're doing. And the example I used earlier was relative to a relationship. You're in a relationship until you break up. Now, in programming, it's not an on again, off again thing. When you break up, it's done and you don't go back. Okay. So when we use break in programming, when we're done, and we jump out. Continue is let's keep going. Let's keep going. And pass is, I like to compare it to, you don't see anything, carry on, just keep on going. Nothing to see here. Just keep on going about your business. And let's talk about those three things and look at an example of them. So let's look at this example of break. So we're in a for loop, for value in string. Let's talk about the for loop first. For each item in the sequence, and the sequence happens to be a string literal constant containing 6 characters. So it's a sequence of individual characters. It will go through those characters one by one by one by one until this happens. So we've put a conditional statement in that loop. Now, if I come here, if I run this code as it stands now, I printed off each value. Boom, 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 boom. And then I ended. It's that implicit else. For val in string, print val, else, print the end. So when such time as val is not in string, or that counting of what's taken place, however many times. How many times do we go through this? 6. One for each item in that sequence. Now, what if I take break off? It's indented at the right level. If I had if commented out, or uncommented, I would have to indent break, because break is part of that condition, or conditional statement. So let's look at this. For val in string, break. How many times are we going to run through this? Are we going to print any of the vowels? We got to the first value and we broke. We didn't print anything. We got out. We got out. We came to the next point. Now, let's go look at this from the explicit else and see what happens. Wait a minute. What just took place? Implicit, when we got done with that for loop, we printed end. Explicit. There's a difference between us being done with this for loop and us breaking. When we break out of all of it. Everything associated explicitly with this for, and the else is tied to the for. So when we break, we're not going to the end. If I ran it this way, I'll print the values, and that I did end. I didn't break out, but breaking out is not just breaking out of the looping, it's breaking out of the explicit else. Now, implicit else is not necessarily we broke out of the for. We broke out of whatever is explicitly stated. Okay. Now, let's tab. Run it again. We have STR, and then we broke. We didn't print anything after R. So as soon as we hit I, we quit, and we came down to the next line in the code. Had that been an else, it would not have been executed because the else would have been tied to the for. Those little things that I want you to go play with in here and test and see what happens if I do that. What happens if I do this? So that's the break statement. And essentially break is, hey, we're going to stop doing what we're doing. And I can say if this condition is true, we're done. All right. Let's go back. And so while loop is condition controlled. If I is greater than 6. I is less than or equivalent to n. All right. I'm going to throw another block of code in here. While true. We're going to print hello. I plus equals 1 if I is greater than 4. Ooh. Break. If I run this, well, let me come up top. I equals 0. Didn't initialize it. There we go. I came in, I printed hello, increased I by 1, so I is 2. If I is greater than 4, break. So here's run 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That fifth time through, when it was 4, or when it turned into 5, that condition was met and we broke. So look at this. This is something that, I said, what do we call the while loop? Condition controlled. What's the condition? True. Well, what's true? The condition. What condition? There is no true condition here. This is what we call creating an infinite loop. I created this loop knowing it will continue until such time as I create a condition to get out. There may be times that you create a infinite loop accidentally. And what we need to do is build in some code like this to where we have a counter, count how many times we've gone through it, initialized at 0, each time we went through we counted, and once we hit a certain threshold, breakout. Now our IDE, our integrated development environment, may have a counter built into it to where it says, look, we've hit a point here that we need to stop. This thing's just out of control. And it's a very large number. I don't want to sit and wait for that to come up with that large number. I don't want to have to manually stop it. I want to potentially implement something like this to break out. There may be a time that while true, and then we go through this looking for what I'll call in the next video a sentinel value. While true, and we just start doing things. We start asking the user for input and doing something until such time as they enter a sentinel value or something is done, some way to get out. Okay. So that's break. We've got continue. And when it comes to continue, I don't want to necessarily get out. I don't want to necessarily get out. I want to keep on going. If value is equivalent to I, we'll keep on going. That's continue. If I is equivalent to 3, continue. Keep on going. This is not something we'll commonly use, but I just wanted you to understand what continue meant. That we're just going to keep going. Well, I is less than 6. I didn't have to put this in. I would have kept going anyway if I was equivalent to 3. So, the last special word that I want to talk about on this one is pass. And remember how I described it. Carry on, keep on walking. Nothing here to see. Don't worry about it. We're all good. And what that means, why I say it that way, is that the program has some expectations. It expects you to actually write code to do something. And if it doesn't see it, it's like, wait a minute, you've got an empty function, or you have an empty class, or you have a for loop and you didn't actually do anything. You can put a pass in there as a placeholder to get you by and not have your code stop because you had a vacancy or something that it had issue with. Let's say that we're going to write functions. Now, we do lists and dictionaries and sets in the next module. The module after that, we'll deal with functions. And we've dealt with so many functions so far, but they were built-in functions, like range. That's a built-in function. Print, that's built in. I didn't create it. I just use it. We're going to create functions in Module 8. And I define it. I say, hey, I'm going to pass it something, but what is it that we're going to do? It's got some arguments coming in. What does it do in there? I haven't gotten to that yet. Well, don't start it if you can't finish it. In this context, this is one of those don't tell me what to do. I'll go ahead and put pass in there. And this tells the program, ignore this. We're all good. Nothing to see here. Carry on. And the program will act as if you had it do something, but that something was really nothing. You told it just carry on. It got the function, went on. So I can call this function. It does nothing. And then we get to the next line of code, whatever it may be. So that's what pass is. Pass, I didn't want to comment this thing out. I wanted it there because it's something that I'm going to use, or I need to point to it. I didn't necessarily want to put a print statement in there, say, hey, I'm in function, whatever. I would commonly do that. I put a print statement in there. Made it to that new function, or here's where I called that function, just to let myself know that I had gotten into that function. And we'll deal with that function when we get to it. And we'll get to function in Module 8. Okay? So that's the 3 things on this one. And I will see you in the next section.